So information has been spread and is being spread around about me based on what I believe in and what I stand for. And this information that is being spread around, I have no control over. And my flesh, Albie, all of me wants to respond, wants to react, wants to, defend myself and say, well, this is how it actually is. But that's my flesh, and I want to talk about how to deal with lies. I've been watching YouTube quite a bit, and one thing I've noticed on YouTube is that many YouTubers often get attacked. People may hear something, they may read a text, and they will interpret what they hear. And then they will make a video telling the whole world, making it public, saying, this person believes this. This person stands for these things. And one thing I've learned from observing these kind of videos is that a lot of information that is put out without consent. Basically, people haven't really double checked their facts. People haven't even contacted the person they're talking about, to see, is this correct? I'm thinking of making a video, I'm thinking of making it public. Are these things about you correct? Do you truly stand for these things? People hear something or they read something and they interpret it and then they publish it. And, this is something that we have to be very careful with because, we don't really understand how much, our words can affect someone when we put out information that is not completely correct. And so I need to be careful with my words. I understand I have a responsibility. This video is not based on me giving my reaction and me trying to defend myself. Because this channel is not about me listening to what people say and reacting. That's not what I do. That's not what this channel is about. This channel is about teaching and helping people in life. And so I want to be clear, this video is about teaching and helping people in life. How do you deal with lies? How do you handle when people are spreading out information about you that is not true? Now, I just want to be clear from the get-go that this is not based upon one thing that's been said. I have grown up with this. Things being said about me that are just not true. And so dealing with lies has been a process for me. It's been from a child all the way up to now when I'm 33. And so this is things that I've learned, things that I have observed. So now, not too long ago, more information was put out about me. And this information, when I heard it, I was just battling because this information was based on what I believe in, what I stand for. And I'm just like, no, this is not correct. And all of me just wants to shout out and just wants to defend. And I was at home and the thoughts were just going through my mind and I'm battling and I'm going over every point that is not correct and that's not right and that's not right and this and that. And it's just going round and round in my mind. At the same time, the kids have no idea. The kids are running back and forth in the house. It's noisy in the house. And I'm just there in my own, my own just craziness going on in the mind. And I just pray right there and then. I said, God, you've got to help me out here. You've got to help me out because I can't continue on like this. It's making me unwell, physically unwell. All of these thoughts, God, you're going to change my mind. Help me out here. And so I prayed right there and then, God, teach me something. Show me something in your word that is going to help me. Show me something in your word that lines up with my situation. And honestly, at that time, when I pray that prayer, I'm like, there's nowhere in the Bible, where it talks about what I'm going through. That, what I'm going through is completely unique. But literally just seconds after I prayed that prayer, a king drops into me. into my mind. And this king is King Solomon. And when it came to me, I began to think about it, consider it, and I'm like, okay, God, what's this? And I'm asking for more. Help me, God, because I don't have the full picture right now. And this is amazing to me. This is just fantastic to me. And it's really lifted up my spirit because this story is just so perfect for the situation. And so what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to share the story from King Solomon, from the book of Kings, 1 Kings chapter 3. I'm going to share the story. I'm going to paraphrase it. And I'm going to show you how it shows us how to deal with lies. You ready? Let's go. So in this story, you have two women. And these two women, they are living in the same house. And it just so happens that these two ladies, they happen to get pregnant at the same time. And it just so happens that these two ladies, they end up giving birth at the same time. And so what you have is, you have two ladies now living in the same house. Both have a young child, or a baby, a newborn baby, which seems to be a boy. They both have boys. And they're both living in the same house. And so what happens is this. One night, one of the ladies, she happens to sleep on top of her child, suffocating her child, resulting in the death of her child. And so she wakes up and she realizes that her child is dead. And so she's like, no, what do I do? What do I do? And in the night, she happens to get a thought. And the thought is this. You know what? Maybe I can switch babies. And so in the night, while the other lady is sleeping, she goes over to the other lady. And what she does is, she sees the other baby there alive with its mother. And what she does is, she takes the living child from the other mother, and she gives the other lady her dead child. And so this lady now, she has the living child of the other lady, and she goes back to her bed as normal. Now what happens is, the other lady now, she wakes up. And when she wakes up, she realizes that her son is dead. He's dead. And she's weeping for her child, and she's just, no. And as she is observing her child, she realizes something. She realizes that, well, hold on a second. This is not my child. This is not my dead child. And she looks over at the other lady, and she's like, you've got my child. You have my child. What are you doing with my child? And so what happens is, the other lady, she's like, no, this is my child. And the other lady is like, no, this is my child. And so they begin to fight over the living child. And both are saying the child belongs to them. Now this fight, this argument seems to go on for a long time, because this argument now, this case, it goes all the way to the king. It reaches the king. And so the lady who the child actually belongs to, she's telling this story to the king. She's saying, this other lady, she's taken my child. And you have words against words. You have two ladies fighting over the child. And the king who is wise, he's wise. He's been given wisdom from God. You see, wisdom is needed, because what is going on right now is, you have this words against words. No one else was there. You know, it's just them two in a house. You just have words against words. And when you have words against words, you need wisdom. You need godly wisdom to find out who is actually telling the truth, or who is actually lying. You need wisdom, and King Solomon had godly wisdom. And so what King Solomon decided to do was this. He said, right, bring me a sword. Bring me a sword. And he says, right, this is what we're going to do. You see this child? Yeah, both of you are saying the child belongs to them. This is what we're going to do. Since the child belongs to both of you, we're going to get a sword and we're going to cut the child in half, in two. Bam. You get one half, you get the other half. Now, what are the lady's responses? See, the lady whose child it actually was, this is what she says. This is what we read in the scriptures. Then spake the woman whose the living child was unto the king, for her bowels yearned upon her son. And she said, O my lord, give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. But the other lady said, Let it be neither mine nor thine, but divide it. You see, the king knew who the mother actually was, depending on the reaction, on the response. You know, and this is so key, yeah, in understanding, you know, who is lying, who's telling the truth, your reaction, your response. Because the mother of the child, we read that her bowels yearned, her bowels, yeah, her bowels. Your bowels are down there. They're down below your stomach, yeah? It's the deepest part of your body. And she was yearning, this longing, this sorrow, and it was coming up from the deepest parts of her. And so when we read that her bowels yearned, we know that she wasn't just saying, oh, just give her the child, it's okay. No, it was coming from a deep place. My bowels are yearning. Just give her the child. Give her the child, please. Let the child live. It's coming from a deep place. Her bowels is such a deep place, and there's so much emotion going on right now because this is my child. It has come out from my bowels, from the deepest places of me. This belongs to me, and just give her the child. Whereas the other lady just said, kill it. Doesn't need to be mine. Doesn't need to be yours. Yeah? The bowels. It came out from the bowels, yeah? And this is what we learn, yeah? That many times when a person is not telling the full truth or lying, they lack bowels, yeah? They lack the deepest places. Things are just coming out from their mouth. They lack compassion. They lack love. They lack care. And so when you see people saying things with a lack of love, yeah, many times it's an indication. Okay, I don't really know if you're telling the truth. I've learned this. When people are not telling the truth, when they're lying, they lack bowels, yeah. They lack compassion. They lack love. They don't care. Kill it. It's okay. It's okay to me. And this is what we see, yeah? And the king saw this. The king saw that the person lacked bowels, and therefore you're telling the lie. And this is why I don't need to defend myself. This is why I don't need to make a reaction video. Because you can see from my bowels, people can see from my bowels, my reaction, my response, you know, and I understand people are looking at my life right now. What am I saying? What am I doing? What is my reaction? And so one way to tell if someone is really being honest or not, you look for the bowels, you look for the compassion, you look, you know, because is this affecting my life? You see, one thing you notice is this: when someone is being lied on, many times their life gets affected very, very negatively. Because if you're being lied on now you have to deal with, you know, possibly the shame. Something's been said and you have to deal with the shame, and people may be looking down upon you, and people may be, you know, looking at you strange, and people may be taking distance from you, and people may be like, well, you know what, we don't want to be friends with you anymore, we don't trust you anymore, We don't want to work with you anymore. And so that person has to deal with all of those things. And so what happens is that person may go into some kind of depression or a dark time. And this is why it goes all the way down to the bowels. It goes to the deepest places because it's affecting me so much. And this lady that was being lied on, it went all the way down to her bowels, to her deepest places. And that's why she cried out from her bowels. Because it goes down to your bowels, yeah? And so when a person speaks from their bowels, yeah, it is often something that has, that has affected them so much, like a catastrophe or something big or something where it requires a big reaction in them. Like, it's not just a little thing. We read about this in Jeremiah chapter 4. When Jeremiah, he gets news, he gets knowledge about what God is going to do to the land. The land is going to be destroyed, and he's getting information about what's going to happen. And it's affecting him so much to the point where it goes down from his head into his bowels, into the lower parts of his body. It's gone so deep now to the point where he says, my bowels, I am pained at my very heart. My heart maketh a noise in me. I cannot hold my peace. It's gone so deep. My bowels is hurting in my stomach. I've lost my appetite. My heart's hurting. Physically, I'm hurting. Physically, I'm in a mess right now because it's gone so deep. And this is what happens many times when you're being lied on. It goes so deep to the point where it affects your health. And this is what happened to Jeremiah. Oh, it's paining at my heart. It's hurting me. All of this information is just hurting me. And so the bowels are coming out. And you can see the bowels. You can see it. It's not just words. It's affections. It's reactions. It's passion. It's so much more. When I was back in England and I was playing drums for the worship team, and when we was practicing, there was a lady there that was teaching the other ladies how to sing with the belly, and she was talking about the difference between singing with the throat, with the mouth, and singing from the belly. And, I'm not a singer, and so I asked my wife, what's the difference, between singing with the throat or the mouth and singing with the belly? And so basically, if you sing with your throat, your mouth, you can only go so far, It can sound good, yes, it can sound good, but actually it's quite shallow. You don't get the fullness of your singing capacity. If you want the fullness of your singing capacity, you've got to learn to sing with your belly, with the depths, yeah? And so when you sing from the belly, there is more power, there is more depth in when you sing. And so this is how it is many times. When you sing, when you speak from your belly, from your bowels down here, there is more depth. It's coming from a deeper place. And so the king saw this. The king saw this lady. This lady, she's speaking from a deep place. She's speaking from her bowels. Therefore, I know. Because you see now, bowels are so much more than just words. So much more. This is why we read in 1 John chapter 3, when John is talking about love and loving each other and loving, other believers, he's given the example of God, God's love. God's love is not just in word only, it's in deed, it's in action. Jesus came to die for us. He didn't just say, I love you. He showed I love you. And so in 1 John chapter 3, he says this, but whoso hath the world's good and sees his brother have need, and shutteth up his bowels of compassion from him, how dwelleth the love of God in him? So basically what it's saying is this: you see someone in need, you see your brother in need, you see, He needs help, and you have the ability to help him, but you shut off your bowels. Now, we can all speak to ourselves, on this one. Many times we see people in need, we see someone in need, but we shut up our bowels of compassion. Yeah. And this is why John says, how dwelleth the love of God in him? Yeah. Because the love of God isn't just word, it's in deed. And so what we can do is we can shut up our bowels. This is what the lady done, yeah, with this child. This other lady, she shut up her bowels, yeah. She had no compassion. Her bowels of compassion, there wasn't any bowels of compassion. That's why she could say, cut the child in two and I can go on with my life. She had no compassion. Yeah, and this is what we see so often when it comes to lies and deception. People lack love and compassion. And the king saw all of this. Now, this is one of the hardest bits now of the story. Because this other lady who was being lied on, just complete lie. She had to do something. One of the hardest things, which breaks my heart. You know what she had to do? Let her have the child. You have the child. I have to let go. She had to let go. She had to let the lies win, so to speak. Because she was more concerned about life. It's gone so far down into my bowels. It's affected my health, and I'm thinking of the health of my child. I'm so concerned about health and life right now. You have the child. I let go. I give it to you. And this is one of the hardest things to do, to let go. Let go? Why should I let go? Yeah, this is one of the reasons why we have war today. Someone says something about someone else, and then they react, and and it's just words against words, and it builds up to the point where war. No one's willing to back down. No one's willing to say, you know what? Say what you want to say. But the lady, she had to let the lies win, so to speak. And at that point in time when she said, give her the child. I don't know if there was witnesses there, but if they were witnesses, you can just imagine what was going through their mind or what was being said. Yeah, I knew it. I knew you was a liar. I knew you was lying all along. And this lady had to deal with those things, people thinking, you was a liar. I thought that, yeah. It seemed like that, yeah. This is one of the hardest things, letting go, because we can feel like, well, people are going to just think that I was lying. But she let the king take control. She let the king take over, the wise king. And so this is it. The king in this illustration, it represents the King of Kings. It's Jesus. She gave it to the king. She brought her request to the king. And she let it go in front of the king. And she let the king take over. She let the king take authority. She let the king ultimately be the judge in this situation. And she let go. She let go. And this is what I know I need to do. I need to just let go. You know what? People can think what they want to think. They can believe who they want to believe. I have to let go because I believe in a king of kings, in a judge who is judge over all, who sees all. You see, King Solomon, he saw it. He saw right through the lies, right through the deception. And I know King Jesus, he sees right through everything. It doesn't matter what people think at the end of the day, because as long as the King sees, I can let go. I can let go, yeah? And I want to take it up one notch now, because this is something that we often forget about when it comes to lies and deception. Is that many times lies have a root, a much deeper root. It's not just a mouth, because many times lies are first manifested in the spiritual realm. Yeah, lies many times, and I'm speaking out not just on a one-time event. Lies many times, they're first in the spiritual realm. And this is why you and I many times need to be very careful about how we use our mouth when we say things out about other people. We need to be very careful, because even as believers, we can be affected by demonic forces. Now, I'm not saying people are demonic or people are possessed in any way, but I know we all can get affected. Peter, Jesus' disciple, was affected. He was affected. When Jesus was telling about his death and resurrection, he's basically saying, I'm going to die. I'm going to die for the sins of the world. I'm going to rise again. Yeah, I'm going to rise again with all power. And Peter, he responds, no, you're not going to die and rise again. And Jesus, he knew the root of what was being said. And so straight away, Jesus says, get behind me, Satan. Right? This is satanic. What is being said, what is coming out of your mouth right now, Peter, is not from God. And that's why Jesus had to rebuke Satan. Get behind me, Satan. We get affected, yeah? We see also with Ananias in the book of Acts, when people were selling their goods and bringing them before the apostles. And Ananias, he sells his land, but he doesn't tell the full truth. He doesn't tell them how much he actually sold it for. And so basically, he tells a lie before the apostles. And Peter has learned some things now. He's learned some things from Jesus. And he says, oh, how Satan has filled your heart to lie against the Holy Spirit. You see, Satan filled his heart. Satan was affecting him and made him to deceive. And this, we could say, was a believer, because he was bringing his gift before the apostles. He was following them. But he was affected, yeah? He was affected. And so this is what we need to understand. Many times lies, when lies are spoken out, many times they're first in the spiritual realm. And I know that in my life, yeah, that lies have been going on a long time in my life. And I know many times I need to fight with the right weapons, because I can't fight in my flesh. This is one of the reasons why I know I have to just let go, because fighting spiritual things with my fists just does not work. You know, it's the same thing with Judas when it was the Last Supper. And he was deceiving the other disciples. He wasn't telling the truth, you know. He's pretending to be one thing, you know, whilst being another thing. And in that deceptive time, you know, it says that Satan entered into him. You know, I know this from a fact, yeah. When people are deceiving, when people are lying, many times they are being affected by an outside source. And this is something that we all need to be careful with, even myself. I'm not bashing people down and saying people are demonic. I'm saying we need to be careful with this, what we say about people, our words. You know, because Jesus, he is the truth. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And this is what I want to focus on right now. Because Jesus is the truth. And he says, when we know the truth sets us free. This is why I'm free from this. I'm free. I don't need to defend myself. God knows. The King knows. He sees my bowels. He's heard my words. You know, and he doesn't need to see anything more. All I need to do is to let go and let God take over. This is one reason why we end up, in death and destruction because we don't let God take over. We don't let the king execute judgment. And just like this lady, she had to let go for the king to execute righteous judgment. I have to let go so that God can execute righteous judgment. And I rest in that. I rest in that. And even though many times, thoughts come and my mind battles, I have to keep giving it to God, lifting up my head and say, God, you know. And so what do you do when people are lying about you, when people are gossiping about you? How do you deal with the lies? Well, after you have, you've done what you can do, you've said what you can say, there may come a point where, just like in this story, you're going to see that, things are between life and death right now. If I continue to go on, something bad is going to happen. Someone's going to get very badly hurt. Something's going to get destroyed. Something's going to die. Yeah. And we have a choice. We either have a choice to continue to fight in the flesh, which most of the time leads to death, or we have a chance to put our hands up and give it to God and fight in the Spirit. The Bible says that we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Okay, the fight is not against people. It is a spiritual fight. And to fight in the Spirit, it means lifting up our hands and lifting up our heads and focusing on God and letting the King of Kings make the final decision. Jesus has the final say. So give it to God. I'll let go. Give it to God. He is the righteous judge. Peace and love.